Anita Anand sits down with Vasily Cabellos and makes me realize that the Liberal Party has no idea what they're doing. They don't have any idea how to handle the oncoming problems, never mind solve the problems that were already plaguing Canadians after 10 years of the Liberal Party. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. The Liberal MP, Anita Anand, who is the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, innovation and industry being very important aspects of that portfolio, went on Vasily Cabellos to try to convince you that they know what they're doing and that they have everything in hand. I would say before we begin this that the Liberal Party has completely ignored many of the problems that were plaguing Canadians long before the inauguration of Donald Trump and long before the initiation of these brand new tariffs or brand new trade model that the United States is bringing forward to the world. We still have the housing crisis, the food crisis, the lack of a military, no internal economy. We have the border problem. We have crime rates through the roof. We have violent crime through the roof. We have housing crisis problem. We have so many issues. We have all of the corruption. And of course, all of the people that were responsible for that are still the people that are in power right now, including Anita Anand. Just because she changed her jacket doesn't mean that she is not responsible for the destruction of this country. And all of the ministers that surround Mark Carney are also responsible for all of that. It makes me wonder if they're ever going to address these problems, or are they just hoping that they can get you to ignore the fact that every person under 35 years old doesn't believe that they'll ever be able to afford a house. Every person that's under 35 and over 55 is having trouble buying food. Food bank usage is up through the roof, but food bank donations is down and down and down. So even the food banks are having a hard time. Of course, the Liberal Party thinks that more handouts is going to solve the problem. They don't seem to have a plan for it at all. And I base that remarkably on, one, they're not talking about it in the press, and two, the answers and the responses of Innovation, Science and Industry and Minister Anita Anand.
We call this a remission framework to ensure that auto producers can have relief as long as they maintain production and investment in our country. I've been on the phone most of the day with the auto sector, the auto companies, as well as labor, to ensure that they know that our government is there to support them every step of the way. Every one of the auto manufacturers has indicated to me that they do intend to stay in Canada. They do intend to produce in Canada.
Everything you just heard there is just not even true. She might be talking to the auto industry, like the unions and the corporations. It's not like she has a direct phone call with the CEO of Hyundai, who is based in South Korea, or the guy in Tokyo who's based in Japan, or Honda, or Ford, or any of the other car dealers that are around. It's not like she's calling up whoever's looking after Tesla. She's getting some phone calls from some low-level board members, some low-level corporate members. And I'm sure that if she wanted to, she could talk to somebody from the union, whether they be the American or the Canadian side. But that's the end of it. The rest of it is just make-believe, because in the end, these corporations will go where the money goes. They will go where the dollar goes. That's what they do. Now that the hysteria of the ESG and the DEI has been taken away in the United States of America, it rapidly looks like one of the choicest pieces of real estate on earth. Because what bothered the industry, what slows down the economy is all of that stuff. And now that that stuff's out of the way, they're going to go where that stuff is out of the way. And under the Liberal government, it is not out of the way. She can't say that to you. She's just going to use buzzwords. However, nothing in there was a plan to solve the problem.
We will be able to provide specifics in short order. Those specifics are being ironed out now. And part of the reason I was on the phone with the auto companies was to obtain their feedback. Idea of the remission framework is certainly to support the industry. There are various options on the table to do that. And once those are ironed out, I will come back and have a conversation about them. Loans are not primarily on the table right now, but I, again, don't want to go too far without ironing out this and obtaining the feedback from industry that is so important to ensure we're rolling out a program that supports them. That framework will be put in place in short order.
Well, there you have it. Don't you feel better? Anita Anand told you that sooner or later they're going to come up with an idea. Yes, we know that Donald Trump made the announcements of the tariffs back in November, but it took us a couple of months to get over the shock of it, and we were really hoping that that he wouldn't do any of that, and we were really hoping that Canadians wouldn't notice. Plus, it was Christmas vacation, and then we had the whole leadership thing to go through. Even though Donald Trump made the decision on day one in January that these were going to be the problems, here we are in April telling ourselves that we're going to talk to the industry, and sooner or later we're going to make a plan. Everything with the Liberal Party is just around the corner. It's never here. It's always tomorrow. It's always down the road. It's never like right now. There's never any solutions that are brought forward. It's only we're going to talk about talking about it, and then we're going to make a plan to talk about making a plan to have a meeting to discuss it. And then we're going to finally come forward and ask all of the car industry what they want to do. So on the one hand, the corporations are going to say, well, we want to move our stuff out of here and you know what, sell the car back to you without any problem. It'll still be CUSMA compliant, so don't sweat it. The union guys are going like, no, we need you to keep these jobs in town because they're good paying jobs. And, I just bought a new car and, all of the things that go along with all of that. Of course, Anita Anand doesn't have a clue what she's doing. She has no idea how to innovate these problems, and neither does Mark Carney, obviously, because if there was an idea in either of their heads, they would put forward a comprehensive plan instead of stalling and delaying. The United States made it clear what they were doing January 20th of this year, and we are in April. And they have done nothing to solve the problem. They're only just chasing their tails. They're just playing catch up constantly. They don't have a clue how to resolve these issues.
We have in place $450 million for small businesses across the country should they need further supports. Removing obstacles to obtaining EI and EI top-ups as quickly as possible. And so in the short term, we will be working with internal government partners to support the EI system that may be accessed to a greater degree given what we are seeing in the workforce and potential layoffs there.
Wow. You have loans for small businesses, and people that are going on unemployment can get one extra week with a top up maybe on the other end. That is so innovative. That is exactly the same thing you did during the lockdown. You handed money out to small businesses. You told large businesses they could stay wide open, and you gave unemployment benefits to everybody that was put out of work. Nowhere in there have you figured out a way to create a new industry, how to create and stimulate a new economy. You keep talking about how you're going to give universal basic income, it seems like, and you're just going to let the whole country go to pot. Or so that you don't have to come up with an idea that will completely go against the ideology you've been proclaiming for 10, 20 years now. Because everybody understands what needs to be done. Those of us that are trying to get the problem solved, the problem of out of control food prices and rent prices and lack of housing that can be achieved by the person. And not only is it a lack of housing that a person can purchase, a young person can purchase, it's a lack of housing that young people want to buy. Nobody wants to buy your condos. Nobody is interested in living in your little cubicle, your little fishbowl. Nobody wants that. That's not what they want. They're not signing on for that. Then Anita Anand tried to change tactics. She tried to say, no, we're going to build new trade routes all around the world and everything is going to be rosy and peachy keen. And we're the only G7 country that has free trade with all of these countries. And yet we are still in the same place that we have been now since the Liberal Party took control.
3/4 of what we send, no matter what your government did to try and amplify trade with other countries, still goes to the United States. So what new plan will you put forward to Canadians to do the opposite? And why should Canadians trust that your government can do that when it hasn't been able to over the last decade?
Actually, we are the only G7 country that has a free trade agreement with every other G7 country. Canada has everything that other countries want.
You talk about all these trade deals that you've made over the years and how we have free trade with all the G7 countries, and yet 75% of our product, despite all of those trade deals that you've made, 75% of our product still goes into the United States. And of course, you heard what Anita Anand said to her. She said, no, but we have the only free trade in the G7. Well, that's kind of a ridiculous statement. And that indicates that you don't even understand the nature of the question. If you've already done all of these things in the past and they haven't changed the amount of freight and the amount of product that we sell into the United States, why would trying it again make it any different? It wouldn't. I can tell you, though, the last thing that she said there is Canada has everything that the rest of the world wants. And there's absolute certainty and truth in that. No doubt about that. We have what the world wants. We are the nation that has it all. Now, we might have it all, but one thing we don't have is a government that supports manufacturing. So they have taken all of the industry out of the country. They sell all of our resources to other countries. China buys a lot. The United States buys a lot. There's no developing of our own industries inside of this country. There's no, the government wants to take control of all of it, the central government, and the Conservative Party wants to let free market reign because free market is the smart moves. Free market's the one that's going to make us all money. Everything else is not going to make us anywhere near the amount of money that people need to solve the problems. But one thing she said that she doesn't seem to appreciate is that Canada has everything that the world wants. Why are we not turning it into the products that they want? And then we just sell them the product. Why are we selling them a discount of our raw material when we should be selling them the finished product at premium rates? Why are we not doing that? Well, because first of all, the Liberal government thinks if you cut the grass, you've committed some crime against humanity. They think if you pull a leaf off of a tree that you need to crawl on the ground and go live in a grass hut. They don't care about the fact that the hypocrisy of how they fly around in jets and drive Cadillacs and all these fancy cars. They don't care about any of that. They only want you doing it so that they can make money off of our natural resources, so that they can take our natural resources and give them in free trade agreements to other countries on other continents and not allow Canadians to manufacture any of it, and then cram us all into tiny little cubicles and high-rise buildings in one small little patch of ground in Canada and tell us all that we're trying to do wonderful things while they lock us in the apartment buildings and hope to feed us with drones. Or where we can't even do the laundry because, laundry is not good for the environment. The vision, the dystopian nightmare that the Liberals have for Canada, I cannot overstate. But I can say right now to you that they're not even trying to develop the industry. She says this is the Innovation, Science, and Industry Minister. She says Canada has everything that the world wants. Okay. And how come we're not doing something with that and turning it into the products that the whole wide world wants? Well, because the Liberal government is in the way. Because they want red tape, they want control. They want taxes, they want control. They want control of you. They want control of everything you think, say, do, and have in your mind. They want control of the amount of money that you have coming in. They want control on how you spend that money. They just want control because that's the personality that they possess. That's the kind of mindset that goes into Marxism. They believe that it all has to be controlled, and that's why it never goes anywhere. That's why it always fails. Because the fear that comes from that level of control, the paranoia that comes out of losing that control, well, that's what keeps them going all night long. That fear of losing the control, that's the one thing that once they have it, they can't let it go. So they will chop and destroy whatever have to. They will do whatever they want, live high on the hog while they tell you that you have to be this pious monk. They're not Lenin. You see the opulence to which they already live at. While they tell you, you have to scale it down. They live in mansions while they tell you to go into a 600 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment with paper thin walls. So, you got to ask yourself what kind of future that you have for you, your family, for your descendants, for all those kinds of things. The Liberal Party will tell you in one breath that Canada has everything the world wants and that we're going to make trade agreements, but we've already made dozens of trade agreements in the last 10 years, and that hasn't changed the economic dynamic of this country. And instead of looking at solving the problem, we're just going to simply try to hand out checks and give everybody unemployment and hope that it doesn't blow up in our face and hope that people are still foolish enough to give us 4 more years to destroy this country. You let me know what you think. Do you think Anita and Ann said something in there that sounded like a good economic plan, a good step forward? I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.